You know, it's just ironic to me that somebody would defend the wealthiest people in this country over the working people of this country.
All right, so Iowa last night was just a mess. We're still waiting on the final results. I'll have a video on that once we get some actual information. But I want to cover a moment that happened last night on MSNBC. So Jason Johnson, who is the guy that predicted that Bernie Sanders would be out of the race by last August, was on MSNBC during the Iowa caucus coverage, and he took exception with Nina Turner calling Michael Bloomberg an oligarch. So I got two clips here. The first one is Nina's response when Jason Johnson had said this off camera.
Close viewers watching in our last segment may have heard Bernie surrogate Nina Turner call Mayor Bloomberg an oligarch, to which our own Jason Johnson took exception. State Senator Turner from Ohio is still listening in Des Moines because she wanted a moment to respond. Nina?
Senator. Thank you so very much. You know, it's just ironic to me that somebody would defend the wealthiest people in this country over the working people of this country. We need real campaign finance reform to the extent that a Mayor Bloomberg can totally finance his campaign. He doesn't have to go out to the people. He doesn't have to build a movement. He doesn't have to talk to people. He can buy his way. It is the same attitude that the elites, maybe Jason likes the word elite over oligarch, but it's the same attitude that the elites had in 1930 against FDR. All of them lined up against him, and he said, I welcome your hatred, because he was standing up for the people. And that is the same message that Senator Bernie Sanders has to the everyday people of this nation, that I welcome the hatred of the elites because I am standing up for you. So cry me a river for the wealthy people in this country.
So there you go. Not much for me to add to Nina's comments. I think she said everything that she needed to say there. The idea that Michael Bloomberg is not an oligarch, I mean, I'll get to covering Jason Johnson's argument in a second, which comes after here. But, what are you fighting over here? Like, why would Jason Johnson take exception with calling Michael Bloomberg an oligarch? Out of all the things to take exception with on cable news, that's what bothers you? That somebody called Bloomberg an oligarch? That's what's offensive to you? I mean, it really shows you your perspective on life. But let's get to Jason Johnson's comments here, which are just completely insane.
I mean, you work for a candidate who's part of the 1%. I have no problem with criticizing the system that allows Mike Bloomberg to make all the money that he makes, the system that allows him to buy what he wants to buy, the system that allows him to buy himself into the administration and buy himself into the debates is a problem. But to call him an oligarch, I think, is a misnomer in this environment. And again, you're working for somebody who's part of the 1%. Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't. You say he's a rich guy. Because just because somebody has a tremendous amount of money doesn't mean that they're not necessarily representing the people. And if you want to use the term elite, you can use whatever kind of term that you want to use. But at the end of the day, the enemy of this country, the enemy of the poor, is not just everybody who happens to be rich. It is a capitalistic system that abuses people. And if you want to speak about that, that's fine. But if you want to name call people, that's not going to help Bernie if he becomes a nominee, and he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money.
I'm not name calling anywhere.
If he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money down the road.
It's ironic that you're defending somebody that is buying his way through the democracy. Yes, you are.
I know this works on Twitter because that's how you guys operate. But when it comes to actual campaign politics, it makes sense to actually describe people for the positions that they have.
Is this about a word? Is this about a word, Jason? Is this about a word?
No, it's not just about a word. It's about the implications of it. And it's about criticizing the system versus criticizing individuals. Like I said, I wouldn't call Bernie Sanders an oligarch, and he happens to be part of the 1%. I would say he's somebody who's wealthy, but who's dedicated himself to trying to uplift people who are poor.
He just got there at the age of 78 years old.
Okay, let me end this. I just want to bring, because I do like this debate, because it's a debate, and I like debates. Number two, do you want to change your word from oligarch?
No, I'm not changing. He doesn't tell me what to say and how to change my words. My words stand.
Well, Brian, it's back to you. I think that's the decisive conclusion of this back and forth.
Why would you go to bat for Bloomberg like this unless you want to curry favor with him? Especially when you are wrong in what you are saying. So let's first look up the definition of oligarch. Oligarch, a ruler in an oligarchy. A very rich business leader with a great deal of political influence. A very rich business leader with a great deal of political influence. That's Michael Bloomberg. Exactly. Now, Jason says, though, the problem is the system. It's not the oligarchs, it's the system. Or what he would say, I guess, the elites. It's not their fault, it's the system. But why is the system as bad as it is? Let me just show you some photos of the kind of access that Michael Bloomberg has. Bloomberg at the White House with George Bush. Bloomberg at the White House with Barack Obama. Bloomberg playing golf with Trump and Clinton. You'd have to be an idiot to not understand how billionaires like Bloomberg are instrumental in the creation of policy that benefit themselves. That's what an oligarch is. Bloomberg is an oligarch. I mean, there is no denying this. Yet he goes to bat for Bloomberg on cable news because he takes exception with the word oligarch. Unbelievable. Now, let's compare the wealth of Bernie to Bloomberg, because he brought this point up. Well, Bernie's, you work for, Nina, you work for a candidate who's a millionaire. Oh, yes. Millionaires and billionaires, exactly the same thing, especially when they're fighting for very opposite things. Bernie Sanders, before I get to the comparison of wealth, Bernie Sanders has fought for the poor and middle class his entire life. Meanwhile, Bloomberg has actively fought against the poor and the middle class to his own benefit. That is the main difference here between Bernie and Bloomberg. But if you want to make the money comparison, because look, people have, and I understand this because I have this issue, we have a problem understanding scale when it comes to money. Because none of us have $1 million. Most people don't have $1 million. So if you don't have $1 million, it's hard to imagine what $1 billion looks like, let alone 60 billion, which is what Bloomberg has. But let me give you a little comparison here to help you understand this a little better. So this is from betterexplained.com. A sense of scale helps us better understand the world and convey ideas more effectively. What's more impressive? Bill Gates has $56 billion. Bill Gates earned over $3,000 per minute, $50 a second, since Microsoft was created. Spending 5 seconds to pick $100 off the floor is literally not a good use of his time. So that's one way of looking at this. And since the comparison here in money is similar to Bloomberg, it makes sense to bring this up. 56 billion, it would be is about $3,000 per minute, $50 a second. It would be a waste of Bill Gates' time to pick $100 off the floor. Now, scaling it a different way, I like this way a little better. 1 million seconds is 12 days. 1 billion seconds is 30 years. 1 trillion seconds is 30,000 years. So to put it in terms of Bernie and Bloomberg, Bernie's wealth is 12 days long. Meanwhile, Bloomberg's wealth is 1,800 years long. So $1 billion or 1 billion seconds is 30 years. 60 billion is 1,800 years. So when you're comparing wealth, 12 days of wealth versus 1,800 years of wealth, it's kind of obvious there's a huge difference here between somebody who has $1 million and somebody who has $60 billion. But Jason Johnson apparently must be trying to get a job with Bloomberg, because why the hell would you be getting into an argument like this on national television?